unravel definitely line about Ramses. So, and going there and seeing so many of the, magnificent structures, and going into the pyramids, standing on the pyramids and looking at everything, and then understanding the geometry and math and everything that surrounds the mystery of these structures, we really got to dig into it and understand what is that really speaking to. So let's go to the Temple of Man, the Great Karnak Temple at Luxor. This is one of many temples that have a lot of hidden occult esoteric meanings. And as a lot of people know, they basically hid, the human body, from infancy up to, adulthood inside the temple. When you go into different chambers, you have, skulls in different chambers, skull sizes from, a newborn up to like a 19-year-old, and the different chambers, the covered chambers. You have the newborn skull shape in the Temple of Karnak. So, they really designed this temple to show man. And it's really well hidden. If you're a person without, deep esoteric knowledge, occult knowledge, things only taught in the mystery schools, you wouldn't pick up on this stuff. It's not even subtle. The stuff is very well hidden to the point where, when you're walking through it, it's just no way you're going to know what it is. You're just going to look at it and see the pillars and see everything that's there, and it's designed for you to just kind of sort of get lost and, be standing in awe of the pillars and, all the hieroglyphics and what have you. But hidden well within the structure is very many esoteric symbols and, Egyptian hieroglyphics that mark the body. So as you walking up towards the Temple of Karnak and the south wall, you'll see right there on the wall, there are chariots, and you have archers on these chariots. And when you look at the placement of the archers on the chariot, right where the wall is, it symbolizes the bottom of the foot. So you have archers symbolizing the arch of the foot. So when you look at that, upon first inspection, I got to zoom in a little bit. It's tough to see, worn down with age. But when you look at it, it's something that you'll just look at and say, oh well, and you'll keep moving. And as you go through the Great Karnak Temple, you'll find in different rooms, different chambers, things on the wall that lead to, the understanding of the human body. For instance, you go to the west wall and you have 13 horses, fully, harnessed horses. And it's representing the spine. That's where the spine would be if you look at it as far as the body. And you have, the 13 horses representing the 13 vertebrae, in the spine. So it's things like this that you find as you keep going through the temple, and you'll start to begin to understand, if you have esoteric knowledge, what it is. So when you get to, of course, the brain, where there's a lot going on, you see the same type of things happening there. So now when you start to make your way towards the head, you have chamber 1 or room 1, which would be where the pineal gland is. They call it the secret chamber. Now you look over to room 4. Room 4 is where the eye would be. But also what's interesting about room 4, when you start to look along the walls, you see the twisted flag symbol, or the flag symbol, which sort of looks like this. Now, what's interesting about the flag symbol is the flag symbol, one, the Egyptians used to make cloth, clothes out of. But when you look at that symbol, it looks exactly like the olfactory bulb, which is the prefrontal nerve or prefrontal vertebrae that deals with our sense of smell. When you look at it, you see how it splits. Now, when you look at it in relation to the temple, the head, you see it matches up right where room 4 is. Now, the interesting thing about that, when you look right before that, it's right where Wajet will be on the Uraeus. You look in front of it, you see the serpent, or Wajet on the Uraeus would be right there. Now, the interesting thing about that is that snakes have the olfactory bulb. They have an olfactory system just like us that deals with smell. And another interesting thing is when you look at the symbol for the flax or the twisted flax, it looks exactly like a snake's tongue, which they use their tongue to smell. So this is one of the more interesting things that we see that they put in there, and they put very intricate, detailed things in symbols. They left symbols that if you do not understand the body deeply, you would never make that connection. So the simple fact that they put the twisted flat symbol there in the same room, in room 4, where it would be, prefrontal, on the prefrontal lobe, the prefrontal brain, is amazing. And that it matches up with Wajet, and that deals with the serpent. I mean, all of that is unbelievable. But, let's get into this whole thing. Now, for the most part, the person that everybody gives credit to for the whole Anunnaki story and the Sumerian text and everything like that is Zecharia Sitchin. The thing is this: Zecharia Sitchin, as I talked about before, is a Mason, 32nd degree Freemason, embarking on what is called the Great Work, or the Great Lie, the Great Deception, something that is required in order to gain 33rd degree. And this is what this is all about. So you got to understand who you get your information from. Now, Bill Cooper put out the video years ago of Sitchin at the Masonic Lodge, trying to cover up his face. And we've seen him with Jordan Maxwell, the whole Masonic handshake. It's a lot of information out there about Sitchin and Freemasonry and everything like that. So it's not hard to make that connection. I understand exactly what's going on here. But the fact that, Sitchin was on the Sci-Fi Channel, and that, he basically had a whole special, on the Sci-Fi Channel talking about the Anunnaki and talking about everything that, Sumerian text is supposedly saying in the, Emerald Tablets. There's only a handful of people on the planet that reads ancient Sumerian and that understands about the Emerald Tablets, and most of them, almost all of them, call Sitchin a fraud. See a whole room full of people, some covering their face, and you see these secret societies that we have, the Rosicrucian, Freemasonry, Knights Templar, the Shriners, and all this, secret societies. You got to understand that there's people that get paid to do this. Sitchin made millions of dollars off of his books, and him, basically leading these trips to Africa and getting people to pay crazy kinds of money to come out there to see these fictional places that he came up with, and it's a lot of money in it. So I always tell people, when you believe certain things, especially like the Bible, the Hebrews who want to believe that we curse and all this stuff like that, when you start getting into this stuff, it is pushing us further away from who we truly are and not getting into the real truth about our history. So now, as I said before, to me, the key to all this: dinosaurs, dragons, the Bible. And when you start to really get into understanding these things, it starts to point itself out. The truth starts to slowly, because you have to start from the beginning. You got to go back. And that's the thing. They want to talk about, they tell us 65 million years ago, dinosaurs exist. And they went extinct before man came into being. But we found too much proof, too much evidence of humans and dinosaurs coexisting on this planet. And the Bible talks about this, when you understand, which we'll get into. And there's too much. It's just so much that you cannot ignore, especially the imagery and the rituals and the celebrations that go on that is surrounding dinosaurs, or surrounding dragons, I should say, which we know, as I said before, they were called dragons, not dinosaurs. Dinosaurs is a later name, 19th century. So we can't ignore this stuff. Gotta look at it. We gotta pay attention to what this stuff is really talking about and how deep it is. And it's deep, as you'll see. So we have the ancients, so many depictions and drawings of dinosaurs, proving that they must have coexisted, because no way they could draw these dinosaurs if they didn't see them. You have all the stories from, the Sumerian culture, the ancient Egyptians, even the Asians talking about these dragons, all these mythologies and stories everywhere, stuff that we can't ignore. So even if you want to go by the whole Sumerian story about this reptilian race, altering the DNA of man, that is implying that, man was already here. It's the same thing with the Bible. The Bible already basically implying that our DNA, or man, was fabricated, and that, there was a man, or a perfect man, before us at one point. Before what we know today as man, there was a perfect man that was altered to create what we have today. And it's also symbolized by the fall of man. Man was perfect, then it was the fall of man, and then we get what we have today. So again, you can't ignore this stuff. You got to put it together, and the pieces fit in very, very unbelievable ways when you start to pay attention. So now, Adam and Eve in the garden is representing perfect man. Man as it was at some point, until the serpent came and changed that. Now, as I said, it's a lot of different things we can get from the Garden of Eden story. Now, we know for a fact, 100%, dinosaurs existed and they ruled on this planet. Is it far-fetched to believe that there could be, or could have been, a reptilian race similar to us during that time? No, it's not far-fetched to think that. It's something that we really have to entertain and think about, because there's too much going on here with this dinosaur or this reptilian reference. So when you begin to understand, we see that the Adam and Eve in the garden representing perfect man, the serpent is representing the reptilian who came and changed man into what we are today, came and altered man. So when you look at the story, this is exactly what it's telling us. You had perfect man representing something different, until the serpent came, or reptilian came, and changed that. It's going to make a lot of sense later. Came and changed that whole thing. And the Bible talks about, all the creeping things and all the animals and everything that was created before man, and that fits, with evolution theory. But, when we take a look at this whole, reptilian thing and begin to understand how we fit in with it, in evolution, you had reptilians, mammals, and birds were the last three to basically evolve on the evolutionary scale, on the chart. So we know, they tell us that humans and primates share a common ancestor. Well, birds also share that common ancestor with us. And it's, weird to see that the last three, humans or mammals, reptilians, and birds, share this common ancestor. So we know that you have this whole missing link. Our lives as well is basically conducive to this system. And, if you understand that, your reality is basically based on what you believe and perceive. So if you understand this, then you need to control what people believe and perceive. If you do that effectively, you can control their reality. And this is what they have effectively done with us. And a lot of people are not understanding this, that your reality is being controlled because they are controlling what you believe and perceive. And they have done so since birth. You have been brought up in a system to where people have been programmed to push out a belief system. We are following a pattern that people who came before us have followed and have brought up and have built and made strong for us to follow as well. We are not following anything that we create ourselves. This is a system that we're following. And a lot of people just don't fathom that you are born almost as if, somebody put you into a maze. And the purpose of life is to get to the end of that maze. Some people will, some people will not. But you have to realize that you are one inside of a maze, and that outside this maze, there is, real life. There is stuff going on. There is powerful people who put this stuff in motion. And that if you can run the maze, you can be, stand with those powerful people. But first, you got to get through the maze. You have to realize, one, that you are in a maze, that this is a trap, this is a plan. This is, every turn you make, something is there to lead you to either the right direction that's going to take you out, or the wrong direction that's going to leave you, at a dead end. So unless you understand, one, you're in a maze, you're never going to make it out. And this is the problem. A lot of people don't realize how this stuff works, and that what you put into your psyche, what you put into your consciousness, what you perceive and what you believe is one of the main issues that causes you to be where you are. So us living in this society, we are bound by the rules of this society. We are, dealing with that, coupled with this illusion of freedom, that you have this freedom of choice and you're free and you can do whatever you want. It's an illusion. There are rules. And you are bound by the system and its rules, plain and simple. So then when you look at that and understand that, the direction that you are going, that you are headed, has been given to you. You don't have a choice when people are giving you multiple choices. You didn't pick none of the choices. All of the choices was given to you. So how are you choosing? If you understand what I'm saying. So it's like if I'm saying, if you want a car, I'm going to give you 6 cars. You pick one. You didn't pick any of the cars. I picked all the cars. You're going to pick one. So your choice is really going to be one of my choices. You didn't walk over there and say, I want that one. I gave you 6 choices. You chose from my choices. This is basically what's going on. So our choices that we have and the path that we can take in life has been given to us. And we have been following this path that we have seen played out, before us. So the whole pattern of you go to school, graduate, you get a job, you get married, you buy a house, you work till you die. You have kids, you work till you die. Those kids repeat that cycle, so on and so forth. And it's basically what the pattern is. And it's like within that, there are so many different what we call traditions. So, you buy a wedding ring, a certain carat, or you wear white wedding dress. You have this at the wedding. The bride wears this or the groom does that. Traditions we call them, but there are traditions that exist within so many different other families. They're not traditions. These are choices that's been put out there for us to choose from. Things that we've seen people do and we chose to do it based upon this system, based upon how we're living in this society. So these are societal things that we are choosing to go to school and go to college and work for these people for the rest of our life until we die, till we can't walk anymore, till we can't even go to the bathroom normally. And that's it. You die, your kids repeat the process, you start over. And this is it. This is what's taking place. So again, when we talk about manifestation, you got to understand that this is not something spooky. You got to understand one, this is something that is ancient, that has been talked about in ancient Kemet, as we'll get into. And, you really got to grasp that, manifestation is just something that we cannot ignore, and it's part of our purpose in being here. So it says here, there are traditions going back to the beginning of recorded human history which speak of the power of manifestation and the law of attraction. Manifestation is the ability of any human being to use certain techniques to manifest what he or she desires. The law of attraction, more accurately laws, that's important, we're going to get into this, are the principles which you can use to manifest your desires. There's nothing mysterious about this. Although the early teachings of manifestation tried to hide their teachings in secrecy and mystery and tried to limit the knowledge for a select few who had undergone initiation rituals of one kind or another. The fact is, this knowledge is now and always has been available to everyone, or at least to those who care to look for it, and manifesting your desire is a healthy way to live. Now, understand the ancient Egyptians talked about manifestation through music. They talked about manifestation all the time. In fact, when you get really learn into understanding Egyptian hieroglyphics, you will begin to see when in the hieroglyphics and the reliefs, they're talking about manifestation. A lot of the times you'll see with astro traveling or with them traveling through the cosmos or with them talking about dreams, you'll see the stars and you'll notice that solar boat. It's a lot of times when you have to look at these glyphs to understand when they're talking about manifestation and talking about using power, using the power of energy to manifest. It gets really deep. But, the Greeks got into it and they understood it. And this is one of the most deepest hidden things in the occult is understanding manifestation, and that it's replete throughout the ancient world, especially in ancient Kemet. So, they gave us the Kabbalion. And we get the Kabbalion, which really is getting into manifestation. Now, it says here, one of the original accounts of how to turn thoughts into reality was the Kabbalion. I'm going to skip down here. The Kabbalion was written by an Egyptian sage called Hermes. And we know Hermes was an Egyptian sage. That's the Greek Hermes Trismegistus, copying off of Thoth. That's why these teachings are called Hermetic teachings. Like many others who have been interested in manifestation, Hermes tried to make sense of the principles behind this phenomenon by classifying and ordering what he thought was going on. And that's important. It says what he thought was going on, and understand when you're getting into the Kabbalah and it's just as coded as the Bible. They are not just going to put all these secrets in the book. So when you read in any of these esoteric books, you got to understand they coded. They code them all. And only a select few is really going to understand what it's actually talking about. Now, there's many other releases we see from ancient Kemet with them playing music. And you got to look at this and understand when we see a lot of these rituals, we always have the playing of music. We could take that back to Voodoo. And even in Voodoo, when you see them manifesting the Loa, remember, there's music playing. It's always music playing. They're beating on drums, the music gets intense, and they're summoning the Loa. This is manifestation. They're manifesting the energy they need to complete the task of the Voodoo spell. And different Loas do different things. So it's different music that they're going to be playing to summon different Loa. So we see this not just in Voodoo, but in ancient Kemet, where music is being used to manifest. Now we know the Kabbalah has like the 7 principles of manifestation. You have all these other things that you can read about when it comes to manifestation. That's talking about, there's different steps that you have to follow to properly manifest or what have you. A lot of this stuff is spooky bullshit, and it's not really getting into the heart of, true manifestation, but giving you stuff, that they think you should follow. Some of the stuff is good and important, but not all of it. It's more to it. But, in the Kabbalah, you understand one of the main things is having faith. No doubting, no worrying, no wishing about the energy of manifestation, which is knowing. Plain and simple. And I say that to get you to understand that knowledge is everything. And when I say it, when you have the knowledge to do something, guess what? It gets done. Because there's no ignorance there. You have all the tools, the knowledge, the know-how to complete the task. So it's going to get done. Plain and simple. So you have confidence when you know. You know the answers to the test. You go in there confidently, take the test. You know how to fight. You ain't scared to step in that ring. You know how to play basketball. You ain't scared to hoop. So on and so forth. Knowing is everything. The knowledge is power. It allows you to have the confidence that's going to, allow you to basically manifest more to a clear victory or a clear achievement of the goal that you're striving for. One of the things you got to understand, as I said, this information is worthy of this knowledge. This whole system of the mystery schools and this teaching and passing down this information seems to be everything, and it was corrupted. And it's one of the things that H.P. Blavatsky gets into in the secret doctrine. So this is really deep, and I want you guys to listen carefully and understand what's being said. So it says, as taught in the secret doctrine, it were the Manasutras, which is Sanskrit, I believe, Hindu or whatever, the sons of Manas, sons of mind, who overshadowed the human vehicle 18 million years ago. When the time arose, they kindled in us, like one candle lighting another, inflaming our minds. We became self-conscious beings, awakened by the gods. That was perhaps the first help, at least as far as we know. Coming from the lodge of wisdom and compassion, the first encouragement to continue our evolutionary journey, and do not think lightly of this, for those divine beings helping us meant that they became active in regions which were far beneath their normal state of consciousness, which makes sense. The story has been told in many myths. Prometheus, the Greek titan who gave humanity fire, the blazing intellect, was chained by Zeus to the rock Caucasus. And wasn't the serpent in Genesis, symbol of the Manasutras, punished for giving humanity the capacity to think? His legs was taken from him, so he had to swing, crawling on the ground, all symbols that these divine beings descended to a for them far inferior realm. We are talking about the third root race, which we're going to get into eventually, not in this video, which lived millions of years ago. In a distant epoch, there was intuitive knowledge for everybody. There was a natural respect and acceptance for those beings who know more than we do. Just like young children respect their parents, and with the help of those divine beings and their direct pupils, the loftiest societies were erected. But eventually, man descended more into matter. And the fourth root race, selfishness. Desire and greed became the main characteristics. Men focused on living in their personalities. They lived in the illusion that they were separated from others. The divine wisdom was more and more abused for selfish purposes. The mysteries. So there came a time that knowledge had to be veiled. The mysteries were installed. No longer was everybody allowed to receive the teachings. Only those who proved to be pure and unselfish had the right to be initiated in those schools of wisdom and compassion. In the collected writings, part 14, in the chapter, The Origin of the Mysteries, H.P. Blavatsky gives abundant evidence and many quotes from all the sages of antiquity, how highly esteemed these mysteries were. They exerted an uplifted influence on society. For although only those who had proven to be unselfish were allowed to enter the greater mysteries, there were also the so-called lesser mysteries, which ensure by means of myths, parables, and rituals that the spiritual light of mankind was not extinguished. Those mysteries or mystery schools were in all parts of the world, and supporting all of them was the force of the Lodge of Wisdom and Compassion. All arts, all knowledge, genuine religion, philosophy, and science had the mysteries as source. Now in this new age, this information is going to be lost. It's going to be gone. And what's left is not going to be taken seriously or even really cared about. And that's the thing. And people don't really get how deep this is really going to be. But you can see what's happening. Information, as we know, is going to be taken down. As I said, this type of knowledge we won't have anymore because it opens the mind too much. It allows the mind to move forward and not, be able to be controlled. And this is something that they're not going to want later on, as we can see right now. So this stuff will disappear. And, our children's children is going to grow up into a super technological age that is far advanced and, is going to be further and further away from what we know as spirituality and, just the human experience. Everything's going to be so much more digital and interactive digitally, not spiritually or physically. And this is where things are headed. They're seeing that they can control, people, with electronics. They can destroy the black family with entertainment. They can destroy black economics with entertainment. They can destroy black unity with entertainment. This is what they have done. So we look at how things are controlled now. Technology is controlling everything. They can control the energy of the people with technology. So the news comes on, tells us something, we take it in, we believe it, and we run with it. Scrolling through the TV looking for SportsCenter, and seeing on the the guide that Stargate was on. So the beginning of Stargate is cool. After the beginning, it really goes downhill from there. But when you look at the beginning, when he's getting into all the information and adding everything up, that is real cool to watch, and it makes sense to a degree. But it was one part that I overlooked because the movie was so old and I didn't go back and see it because I was like, okay, these people are supposed to be Egyptians. You know how they always show the Egyptians not being black. So, I never really paid the movie no mind. So started to watch it and remember, they find the Stargate in Egypt and he's going through the symbols and he basically see the hieroglyphic symbols, which he knew, but it was symbols that he didn't understand. They couldn't figure them out. And then eventually he figures them out and he realizes that these are not hieroglyphs. These are actually star constellations that's on the device. So when they plug in the constellations, that they come up with a seven sequence, 7 depictions or what have you to get the Stargate to open. Now, remember when he opens, get all 7 into the device and they open it, remember the Stargate, when it first opens, there's a big poof of water that comes out of Stargate.
And that's when it hit me. And I was like, so much stuff just came rushing to my head, except for the physics of it all, which is the tough part. We won't get into that. But the water came rushing through the Stargate. And I was like, wow, it's crazy. It's right here in front of our faces the whole time. And we were overlooking it for obvious reasons. So you had that happen. And I just began to remember, the ancient Egyptians and looking at all the depictions of the waters of Noon. Talked about this when they give us the creation story of the ancient Egyptians. It's the waters of Noon. And they're telling us that everything came out of the primordial waters of Nu. And it's just something that we just didn't think about. So the primordial waters of Nu, how they were depicting it was space is like a liquid. But when you first get into it, as I told you guys, they were basically saying that it was like the oceans, because the ocean is the dark abyss. Space is supposed to be the dark abyss. Connecting the two was tough. Not perfect. I don't get everything right. But this one I just simply overlooked. And it's right in front of our face. But what they have shown us, many depictions, is them traveling through space on the solar bark or the solar boat. And it makes sense. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Why would they depict space as them traveling and having to use a boat? Right? So it's like, wait a minute. I've seen this in a depiction before. And when we look at the depiction of the creation story, when we look at Newton Jeb and we see the solar boat traveling through the sky, and it's traveling, which that's supposed to be the sky, the arch, the blue arch, you see the stars. So it's telling you as if, wait a minute, space is a liquid. And that's how you have to travel, astral travel through the solar boat. That's a key we're going to get into in a second. The solar boat, why they call it that. It's going to make a lot of sense. So looking at that and then just seeing what's coming up. So we had Avatar, The Way of Water. Then you had the Black Panther movie with the water people, this whole underwater civilization or what have you. Now we have The Little Mermaid. And I'm looking at all this and it's like, what is going on with all these water themes, movies that's coming up? Like, what is that? We'll touch on that later.